It's not only Donald Trump who's jealous of me. Barack Obama is jealous of me. George Bush and Bill Clinton also are jealous of me. They think that being the president of the USA makes them entitled to be the most important man in the world, I guess. And the most interesting too. So if anyone else is getting more attention, even if that other man has less power, and maybe he only has more influence, but he has less power, they think that's an infringement on their presidency. So they're all jealous of me. There was a woman who was a journalist named Helen Thomas, and she was there in the newsroom during one presidency, and then another presidential administration, and then another presidential administration, several. And so she saw presidents sworn into office. She saw presidents leave office, several of them. And the president started to ridicule me, I think, or they were making fun of me and ridiculing me when I was very young, because my father had been the focus of their ridicule before me. And then I think my father was ridiculed because of my father was being ridiculed because of he was um, I don't know, maybe caught in the act when he alone with me when I was a toddler. Well, they were making. I think they were making fun of us because my father was a target before me. So then they started doing anti-communist operations against my father to pull all the women away from him, using social sabotage and slander and other forms of social manipulation, bribery, and propaganda. And my father was already losing popularity from clinging to being a vegetarian. At that time, it meant being a vegan to be a vegetarian. So he was mentally delusional. There's a question as to whether my father was really dead, because it seems that heroin, morphine equivalent addicts, those who are addicted to morphine equivalent drugs, might have some stories they can tell about it, about when someone has a dose that was not completely metabolized, a dose that was too big, but then it was not completely metabolized all at once. And then a person went into suspended animation like a bear hibernating, except for they get even more asleep than that, I think. Um, my father, I thought he was dead, and my mother and her older son maybe were in on it, that they knew that Stephen was going to get uh, drugged, and then they allowed his body to go cold. So I said, I'm going to take charge of the funeral arrangements. I'm not going to let these mean people who were being mean to my father be the ones to choose his funeral arrangements. So I waited till they were somewhere else, and I lifted up Stephen's body, and his legs were sticking out straight like a corpse with rigor mortis. Now, maybe the uh, heroin heroin drug junkies have some stories to tell about this, about people being so uh, unconscious and uh, so their metabolism slowed so much by the drugs that their body can go cold. and appear to be dead. And when their body's cold, it's not rotting. So then they can get warmed up as the blood withdraws from the arms and legs, and there's a very slow heartbeat and a very slow rate of respiration. They're not entirely dead. And so the blood has been withdrawn into the body from the arms and legs and the head. And the heart is still beating, and there's still a little respiration happening. Well, his legs were sticking out straight. I carried I thought it was his dead body. I carried his body to the back of a truck, and I drove away, and I returned him to his home and put him on his bed, where he normally would sit, where he would be lying on his bed watching television. And then I was exhausted. I went up to my room and slept. And when I woke up the next day, his body was gone. I figured somebody had confiscated his body, as I had confiscated his body from my mother and her older son. Well, now that I think about it, I remember that I went to my younger brother's mother's house with the body of our father in the back of the truck, and nobody came outside. The truck was very loud, but nobody came outside. So then I went to my younger brother's house on First Road, as it was at the time. It was where he lived at the time, I think. And I don't remember if he came out. I might have told him that our father's body is in the back of the truck. I don't think he came out, or maybe he came out. I don't know. So anyway, I remember looking at my father's body. I went home, and then I was not planning to handle that alone. I was just confiscating the body from my mother and her older son, and I was going to plan the funeral arrangements with the help of others. But they said somehow I didn't get anybody outside. I don't remember if somebody came outside to confirm what I said was true, or if I spoke to anybody on First Road. But I went back to the house where my father lived, and I put his body on the bed. And I remember looking, and I noticed that his legs had gotten, his legs were not so straight as they were. I put him in sort of diagonally with his head up. I didn't put him lying flat, which is what I should have done, lying flat in the bed of the truck, but I put him with his head leaning, I think, against the side. And then he was kind of maybe rolling slightly back and forth. Well, anyway, his knees had become slightly bent and slightly mobile, not entirely like refrigerated dead flesh would be. His knees had regained some mobility during the trip, but he was still stiff, like rigor mortis. And I carried him in, and later a nurse showed me that what you do when you're carrying somebody who's heavy, and he's not very heavy. He had lost weight, but he was still very heavy for me. And I had walked many miles to go to where he was after he was reported dead. Anyway, I lost my strength, and he started to slip gradually out of my grasp because my biceps were failing. And so I had to set him down in sort of a controlled descent to where his heels, without much velocity and without much momentum, his heels hit the ground on the driveway, which is rocky gravel. And then I carried him into the house, and then again I started to lose my strength, and I had to kind of let him settle down to where his heels hit the ground on the floor inside the house. And then I carried him the rest of the way in, put him on his bed. And there's the suggestion he was alive. And I've said a lot of things about people faking their own deaths. So it's been many years anyway. So there's a place people go where after they have had a fake death, they go somewhere and live in seclusion. And it might be a disadvantage. So then they can use my father being a captive, that because they have to maintain a secrecy and seclusion until he dies, they can use his captivity as leverage to deprive him of various things, or to uh, put uh, put him under a siege of aggression of others who are kept in captivity, in seclusion, in private, in secrecy and seclusion, which is also there by necessity. They have to maintain. It's like captivity, because look, we told the world you're dead, and you agreed to that, and you can't go out, or else you're going to be, your reputation is destroyed, and you're compromising our whole operation. So he put himself at a disadvantage if he did that. And then that was one of the reasons why the enemy coalition had uh, leverage over me, is because maybe they were torturing my father in that secret, secluded place where they keep people who've been declared dead before they're actually dead. So maybe they were using that against me, that they had him, they could torture him, and they could get him to sign off on things they wanted to do, forms of torture they wanted and deprival they wanted to use against me. They could torture him until he would approve of something that they wanted to do to me as a punishment. And so they had him under they had him captive, and they were arguably they were probably torturing him to get him to agree to denounce me, or to approve of some new sanctions against me, to deprive me, or to disparage me, or use forms of torments, psychological tortures, and forced striving. That's all for now. I, um, I got a message that I was accustomed to that being the end of the storage volume on this phone. It's a very small phone. That's a long video. I'm going to upload it now.